The number one thing stopping you from success, I promise you, is not what you think. And in this video, I'm gonna show you exactly what that thing is and how you can stop it from stopping you. What's going on, everybody? My name is Joshua Sparks, agency owner, coach, course creator. But this YouTube channel, my only goal with it is to simply provide you value so that you can master your identity and master your reality. So, what is the one thing that is stopping you from achieving success in any area of your life, whether it's health, wealth, business, relationships, whatever it is? The number one thing stopping you from achieving success is not failing, okay? And the answer is simple, right? There is no such thing as experiencing success without first experiencing failure. If you think about any of the greats, and whether they are an athlete or if they're an entrepreneur, or an actor or an author, whatever it is, anybody in their top of their field, way before they achieved their success, they experienced hundreds, if not thousands, of failures, okay? And if that's true for the greats, then chances are it's true for all of us and any of us, right? So if you are not yet experiencing success within your own reality, chances are you simply haven't experienced enough failure. Okay, so instead of focusing on how you can achieve success, you should be focusing how you can achieve your next failure. And I know that sounds maybe like not as enjoyable. You don't, I mean, really at the end of the day, obviously the end result and the end goal in mind is to experience the success. So how can we really wrap our minds around enjoying a failure in the moment? But if you shift the way you think about it, if you shift the way that you look at it, and you look at each failure literally as you're one step closer to that success, I believe you'll be able to find much more joy in those failures. So if you want to double your rate of success, meaning if you want to experience double the amount of success in your life on a yearly basis, daily basis, whatever it is, the one thing you must do is double your rate of failure, which again, much like every other video I've posted on here so far, means you kind of just have to start. You just have to do the thing. You have to allow yourself the opportunity to be. You have to allow yourself the opportunity to fail, right? So to double your rate of failure actually means to double your rate of success. And the truth is that success actually doesn't teach you anything, right? I've had a lot of success in many areas of my life. As you can see, I'm living here in Bali. I run an online business. There's many aspects of my life that are doing very well that I would consider successful. But those successes don't really teach you anything, right? Those successes don't lead to valuable life lessons. But the one thing that does lead to immense amount of understanding, of lessons, of learning is failure. Failure is the one thing that will provide the most amount of experience, of knowledge, of lessons, right? So again, the number one thing for us to focus on should be actually, how do we fail more? How do we take more chances, more risks, take new opportunities on so that we can double our rate of failure so that we can get one step or two steps closer to that success? And again, those failures are actually what's going to lead to our growth. That's actually what's going to teach us things, teach us valuable lessons in life. And the successes, well, they're not really going to teach you much, but they're definitely enjoyable moments, and that's obviously still what we're striving for. But again, the lessons, the growth, the beautiful, evolution of our own self and our identity and our life and our reality, that comes from the failures. And the other thing about fear, if you look at the 4 letters there, fear actually stands for false evidence appearing real. So many times we have these made up fears in our mind, right? And I'll give you an example, personal example. If you were to start a YouTube channel, you might have a fear that people are going to criticize you or people are going to judge you, or you might have a fear of what people are going to think, right? But the reality is so many of those fears that we let get in our way and let stop us from taking any action, right? Let us stop us from achieving that success. So many of those fears aren't even real, right? The whole fear of what people are going to think, Most people are so consumed in their own life and their own day-to-day and their own things that they don't even really have the time to think about what we think they're thinking about, right? And so that's just one example of how fear really is just false evidence that we make up in our mind that we think is real and valid, but really at the core of it, that's our own block, right? That is our own sort of belief system in our head, and it's not actually oftentimes valid, right? Of course, yes, people judge. There are things to be afraid of. There's a lot of terrible things that can happen out there, but more often than not, those fears, they're not real, right? And very, very rarely do they ever actually come to fruition. So again, we really need to work on getting excited to fail. And again, if we just look at every failure as the next step towards success, I think we can really begin to shift the way that we think about it and shift the way that we look at it, right? And chances are, if you are afraid of failure, you're afraid of judgment from others for your failure, chances are that's because you're also judging others for failing, right? So often we are worried about receiving the very things that we do ourselves, right? Otherwise, if we didn't do them, we would not really think so heavily about how other people would do those things to us, right? So if you are afraid of failure because you're afraid of judgment from other people, you're afraid of being viewed as a failure or having failures in your life, chances are that that's a reflection of how you view failure from other people, right? And I know that can be a little bit triggering. You might say, Josh, I don't actually judge anybody for failing, but chances are if you really took a deep dive to think about the failures that you've witnessed, maybe in your friend circle or within your family, chances are you've probably had some sort of judgment towards them or towards that experience, right? And so I really encourage you to look at if, in fact, you are having any sort of fear of failure because you fear judgment. I encourage you to look at where you might be passing that judgment onto other people, because if you have that fear, chances are there's a reason for it. And then lastly, I really encourage you to change the way that you look at fear of failure, right? Because so often we are looking at things with a selfish point of view, meaning we're worried about how it might affect us, right? Oh, I'm worried about what people are going to think. Oh, I'm worried about failing. Oh, I'm worried about the time or the energy that I have to invest into this thing. And then we talk ourselves out of it, right? We give ourselves a whole list of reasons why we shouldn't do it, and all those reasons are selfish, okay? So if you notice yourself doing that, I encourage you to flip that on its head and look at it from a different perspective, i.e., look at it from a selfless point of view. Look at it instead of how it's going to affect you or how the failure might scare you or how the time and the energy that it's going to drain from you. Look at all the impact that it's going to have on the other people around you, right? Look at it from a selfless point of view. And again, to use this as an example right here, if I were to look at this YouTube channel or this podcast as, purely of a selfish decision, I wouldn't do it. Selfishly, this takes too much time, too much energy, and there's a whole list of possible things that could not work well with it, right? But if I look at it from a selfless point of view, there are endless amounts of impact and inspiration and motivation and all kinds of things that could lead from me doing this one simple act. So if I look at it from a selfless point of view, it'll be much easier for me to get out of my own way, release the fear of failure, release the fear of judgment, and just do the very thing. But if I'm caught up in how it's going to make me feel if I fail, then I'm not going to do it, right? We have to bring in inspiration and motivation from outer sources, right? It can't always be internal. So if I'm constantly worried about how it's going to affect me, it's going to be much easier for me to get in my own way, right? Whereas if I look at it, like I said, from a selfless point of view, and I'm more so focused on how it's going to impact the person behind that screen right there, how it's going to land on their ears, what's going to then happen once that information is digested. If I can just focus more on the impact selflessly, then it's much easier for me to get over the fear of being on camera, get over the fear of failure, get over the fear of judgment, right? So often, and that doesn't just include, a decision like this. It could be taking a new job. It could be, building a new relationship, whatever that is. So often you have to look at things from a selfless point of view. Now, of course, you got to take care of yourself, and I'll say that for another podcast, but it's obviously very important to take care of yourself and know when to say no. But a lot of times when it comes to this fear of judgment or this fear of failure, it's simply because we're looking at it too selfishly and not from a selfless perspective. I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope you got some valuable information out of this. Stay tuned for the next one. And as always, love you guys. Peace.